Her friends mocked me all night. Then she said, "Pay and leave if you can't take a joke." So I did. You know that feeling when you're watching a slow-motion car crash, except you're the one behind the wheel? That was my 3-year relationship with Sophia. My name's Jake, and I'm about to tell you how one dinner changed everything. Not in some dramatic Hollywood way. No, in that quiet, inevitable way that real life tends to unfold. I met Sophia at a craft beer festival in downtown Denver. She was arguing with a vendor about IBUs and hop varieties, and I thought it was the most adorable thing I'd ever seen. A PR manager who actually cared about the details. Her passion was infectious. Back then, she'd sit for hours listening to me explain the difference between a flathead and an overhead cam engine. She'd trace the grease stains on my hands like they were constellations. "You're building something real," she'd say, "not just pushing pixels around a screen." Funny how time changes perspectives. Or maybe it just reveals what was always there. The first crack appeared about a year in. Sophia's friend group was, let's call in particular. Ember worked in fashion marketing and had this habit of examining my clothes like they were crime scene evidence. "Jake, do you actually choose to dress like a lumberjack, or is it just happening to you?" she'd asked at our first meeting. I laughed it off. People joke, right? Then there was Chloe, the lifestyle blogger who once spent 20 minutes explaining why my engineering degree was cute, but not real intelligence like her communications major. "Anyone can follow instructions," she'd said, sipping her $15 cocktail. "But creating content? That's art." Bree was the worst. Investment banking analyst who treated anyone making less than 6 figures like they were personally offending her. She once asked if I knew what compound interest was. I design cooling systems for aerospace companies. I literally calculate thermodynamics for spacecraft. But sure, explain to me how money works. Here's the thing, though. I love Sophia. Love makes you do stupid things, like believing that tolerance is the same as acceptance. There's this quote I read once. "Sometimes we spend so long trying to save someone else's sinking ship, we don't notice our own is already underwater." Should have tattooed that on my forehead. I kept telling myself they were just protective friends. Sophia was climbing the corporate ladder, getting noticed by the right people. Her world was expanding, and I wanted to be part of it. So I smiled to the jokes about my cute little garage hobby. I nodded when they explained things to me like I was 5. I even started leaving my work boots in the car when we went out. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago. Sophia had just landed a massive promotion, Senior VP of Communications, youngest in the company's history. I was genuinely proud. Booked us a table at Millennium, that place downtown where they serve foam instead of sauce, and charge you $80 for the privilege. The whole gang was there. Ember in something that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Chloe live streaming the appetizers. Bree checking her phone every 30 seconds because the markets in Tokyo were doing something important. The evening started fine. Champagne toasts, fake smiles, the usual performance. Then Ember started her routine. "So, Jake, now that Sophia's basically running the company, are you going to, step up? Maybe trade in the grease monkey act for something more appropriate?" Chloe jumped in. "Oh my God, yes. I know this image consultant who could totally transform you. She worked with my ex when he was transitioning from bartender to, well, he's still a bartender, but a much better dressed one." They laughed. That sharp, tinkling laugh that sounds like breaking glass. I looked at Sophia. She was scrolling through her phone, typing something, not even listening. Or worse, listening and not caring. "Could you maybe dial back the commentary?" I finally said, kept my voice level calm. "I'm happy with who I am." The table went quiet. That kind of quiet that feels loud. Sophia looked up from her phone, and I'll never forget the expression on her face. Like I was a stranger who just interrupted her meal. "If you don't like my friend's jokes," she said, each word dropping like ice cubes into an empty glass, "you can just pay and leave." The words hung there. Ember smirked. Chloe had her phone out, probably hoping for drama to post later. Bree was already back to her market reports. You know what? Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. I stood up, didn't make a scene, didn't argue, just pushed my chair back with that subtle screech against the floor that made everyone in the restaurant glance over. Walked past a hovering waiter, past the hostess station, straight to the bar where they process payments. Separate check, I told the bartender. Just for what I ordered. She looked confused. But your table dash. Just mine. Craft beer and the Wagyu sliders. Table 12. $68 and change. I tipped $20 because the service wasn't the problem. The bartender ran my card, and I could feel the eyes from table 12 boring into my back. They probably thought I was paying for everyone. That's what a good boyfriend would do, right? Pay for the privilege of being insulted? I signed the receipt, grabbed my jacket from the coat check, walked out into the Denver night without looking back. Not once. My truck was parked 2 blocks away. One of those moments where every step feels deliberate, like you're walking away from explosion in an action movie, except the explosion is just your entire relationship quietly imploding behind you. No dramatic soundtrack, just the sound of my boots on concrete and distant traffic. I sat in my truck for a long moment, key in the ignition but not turning it. The silence was incredible. For the first time in 3 years, I could hear myself think. No criticism, no jokes at my expense, no explaining why my interests mattered. Just me, sitting in a 1978 Ford F-150 that I'd rebuilt from scratch, feeling more myself than I had in years. My phone was already buzzing. I didn't need to look to know what those messages said. But you know what? Some conversations are over before the other person realizes they've ended. I turned the key. The engine rumbled to life. That perfect purr that only comes from something you've built with your own hands. As I pulled away from the curb, I realized something. I wasn't driving away from anything. I was driving towards something. I just didn't know it yet. I drove for maybe 20 minutes before muscle memory took over. Ended up at Mark's place without really deciding to go there. That's the thing about good friends. Your truck knows the way even when your brain's offline. Mark had been my buddy since high school. Mechanic, divorced, zero tolerance for nonsense. He'd met Sophia's crew exactly once and immediately dubbed them the 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse. His garage door was open. Classic rock, bleeding out into suburban night. Found him under a '69 Camaro, just his legs sticking out like the Wicked Witch of the East. I kicked his boot lightly. Either you finally grew a spine or Sophia's dead, he said without sliding out. Those are the only 2 reasons you'd show up here on a Friday night. I grabbed a beer from his mini fridge. The good stuff, local brewery, none of that light beer nonsense. She told me to pay and leave if I didn't like her friend's jokes. The creeper rolled out so fast I thought he'd achieved flight. Mark sat up, wrench still in hand, looking at me like I just told him I'd won the lottery. No way. She actually said that? Out loud? In front of people? I nodded, took a long pull from the bottle. And you? Paid for my $68 meal and walked out. The garage went silent, except for Skinner on the radio. Then Mark started laughing, not chuckling. Full on, bent over, can't breathe laughing. He laughed so hard he had to put the wrench down before he hurt himself. 3 years, he wheezed. 3 years of those vultures pecking at you, and you finally, oh man, just your meal. That's beautiful. My phone started buzzing. First text came in at 9:47 p.m. Sophia, where you? 9:52 p.m. This isn't funny, Jake. 9:58 p.m. Are you seriously doing this right now? 10:03 p.m. You're being incredibly immature. Mark read them over my shoulder, providing commentary like a sports announcer. Oh, look at that transition from confusion to anger. Classic. Wait for it. Wait for it. There should be a guilt trip coming. 10:07 p.m. I can't believe you'd embarrass me like this in front of my friends. Boom. There it is. Mark grabbed another beer. You know what kills me? She still doesn't get it. She thinks you're playing some game. He was right. In her mind, this was probably some elaborate manipulation. The idea that I'd simply taken her at her word? Incomprehensible. Then the flood really started. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree, having a seizure. Ember, really? You left 4 women with a $1,500 check? What kind of man does that? Chloe, this is financial abuse. I'm literally shaking. I had to use my emergency credit card. Bree, you owe us $375 each. I'm sending you my Venmo. This is unacceptable. Mark was reading them and doing the math. Hold up, $1,500? For one dinner? What were they eating, endangered species? Champagne, I said. Lots of champagne. The kind that comes with sparklers and a whole production. The kind you didn't order? The kind I specifically said I wasn't paying for when they ordered the 3rd bottle. Mark shook his head. You know what your problem is? You're too nice. You let them think kindness was weakness. My ex did the same thing. Kept pushing boundaries until one day I came home and she'd sold my dad's tools at a yard sale. Said they were cluttering the garage. Another barrage of texts. Sophia again, my car got declined. I had to call my mom to pay. Do you understand what you've done? Her car got declined? Mark was incredulous. Miss Senior, VP of whatever can't cover dinner? Image is everything, I said, repeating one of Sophia's favorite phrases. Designer bags, designer shoes, designer life. Designer debt, apparently. 10:45 p.m. Jake, please. Let's talk about this like adults. 10:50 p.m. You're throwing away 3 years over one comment? 10:55 p.m. Fine. Be that way. You'll regret this. Then came the group chat invitation. Sophia had added me to something called Jake's Intervention. The messages were already flying before I could even process what was happening. Ember, we need to discuss your toxic masculinity and how it's affecting Sophia. Chloe, I'm researching emotional damage lawsuits. This is definitely actionable. Bree, calculating interest on what you owe us. It's compounding daily. Sophia, Jake, we're trying to help you see how wrong this was. Mark read the messages, his expression shifting from amused to disgusted. Toxic masculinity? For not paying for their champagne carnival? These people are delusional. They live in a different reality, I said, one where they're always the victims and everyone else exists to serve them. My phone kept buzzing. More messages, more accusations, more demands, each one more ridiculous than the last. Apparently, I was now responsible for Chloe's Uber home, Ember's emotional trauma, and Bree's time spent dealing with the situation, which she was billing at her consulting rate of $200 an hour. You know what the funny part is? Mark said, scrolling through the messages, they still think you're coming back. Look at this. Sophia's already planning how you're going to apologize. She's actually scheduling your redemption. He was right. Between the threats and demands, Sophia had sent, we can work through this. Breakfast tomorrow at the Benedict? Your treat, obviously. That's when it hit me. Really hit me. She thought this was a negotiation. Like I was a contractor who'd walked off the job, but could be lured back with the right terms. She didn't understand that some bridges, once burned, light the way forward. There's a quote my dad used to say, Mark offered, working on his 4th beer, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Maya Angelou, I think. Smart lady. They've been showing me for 3 years. I admitted, I just kept making excuses. Love makes you stupid, Mark said. But stupid doesn't have to be permanent. 11:30 p.m. The messages kept coming. My phone battery was dying from the constant notifications. The latest was a voice message from Sophia. I didn't play it. Didn't need to. I knew what it would say. Tears, probably. Manipulation, definitely. Maybe some revisionist history about how good things used to be. So what now? Mark asked. I looked at my phone, at the wall of texts from people who claimed to care about me, but couldn't even respect me enough to laugh with me instead of at me. The answer was obvious. Now! I selected Sophia's contact. Block. Ember. Block. Chloe. Block. Bree. Block. The group chat. Leave and block. The phone went silent. Actually silent. For the first time in 3 years, nobody was criticizing my clothes, my job, my hobbies, my existence. The silence was beautiful. Mark raised his beer. Sometimes the best response is no response at all. We clinked bottles. Outside, suburban Denver was settling into sleep. Tomorrow would come with consequences. I knew that. 3 years of intertwined lives don't separate cleanly. But tonight I was just a guy in his buddy's garage, drinking beer and feeling free. Want to help me pull this transmission? Mark asked, gesturing at the Camaro. Yeah, I said, setting down my dead phone. Yeah, I do. Some things in life are complicated. Others are beautifully simple. Knowing the difference? That's wisdom. And apparently, it only took me 3 years and a $1,500 dinner to find it. Saturday morning came with a hangover I didn't earn and a text from a number I didn't recognize. Area code 720, still Denver at least. The message was simple. Jake, this is Thomas, Bree's boyfriend. We need to talk. They're planning something. Thomas. I'd met him maybe 5 times total. Quiet guy. Worked in IT. Always looked like he'd rather be anywhere else when the squad got together. He had this way of staring into his beer, like it might transport him to another dimension. I could relate. I called him back. His voice was hushed, like he was hiding in a bathroom or something. Dude, they've been on a group FaceTime since 6 this morning, he said. Bree's got her laptop out. They're making spreadsheets. I heard your name in the word revenge about 50 times. Thought you should know. Why are you telling me this? I asked. There was a pause. Then, because I'm tired of pretending their behavior is normal. You know what Bree called me last week? Her placeholder boyfriend. To my face. At her parent house. Placeholder boyfriend. Jesus. Also, he continued, they're at that coffee place on Larimer. All 4 of them. Your apartment's empty if you need to grab stuff. The apartment. I'd been living with Sophia for 2 years, my name on the lease alongside hers. Half my life was in that place. My tools, my vintage guitar, the scale model of a V8 engine my dad built before he passed. Things that mattered. Thanks, Thomas, I said. I owe you one. Just living vicariously through your escape, man. Good luck. The drive to the apartment was surreal. Saturday morning in Denver. Families heading to farmers' markets, joggers everywhere, normal people living normal lives. Meanwhile, I was about to excavate my existence from a relationship that had turned into a crime scene. The apartment looked like a tornado had philosophical differences with a hurricane. Couch cushions everywhere. Empty wine bottles creating a recycling monument on the counter. Someone had been smoking. The smell clung to everything despite our no-smoking lease agreement. There were yellow legal pads covered in what looked like battle plans. I kid you not, they'd drawn diagrams. But here's the thing that stopped me cold. My model engine was gone. The one my dad spent 3 months building while going through chemo. Just gone. I stood there for a moment, processing. They'd turned my home into their war room, and somewhere in their strategic planning, they decided my most precious possession was what, collateral damage? That's when I noticed my toolbox was also missing. The snap-on set I'd saved for 2 years to buy. My vintage guitar, nowhere to be seen. They hadn't just made a mess. They'd been shopping. I pulled out my phone, opened Facebook Marketplace on a hunch. Didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Vintage Fender Stratocaster, $500, worth much more. Quick sale. Posted by Sophia Martinez. Location, Denver. Listed 1 hour ago. I scrolled down. Professional mechanic tool set. Complete snap-on collection, $300. Classic car parts and accessories make offer. And then the gut punch. 1974 Plymouth Barracuda. Needs work, $8,000. My car. My project car that I'd spent 5 years restoring. Listed for a quarter of its value. Screenshots. Everything. My hands were shaking, but not from anger. It was something else. Clarity, maybe. When someone shows you exactly how little you meant to them, it's almost liberating. I called the non-emergency police line, explained the situation to the dispatcher. She sounded bored until I mentioned the car title was in my name only. That's theft, sir. We'll send someone over. Officer Martinez showed up 20 minutes later. Young guy, probably fresh out of the academy. He looked at my screenshots, then at the ransacked apartment, then back at the screenshots. This your girlfriend? He asked. Ex-girlfriend. Smart man. He took notes. Here's the thing. Shared residence makes this complicated. The items listed, though, if you have proof of ownership, that's different. The car especially. That's grand theft auto if she sells it. I have titles, receipts, everything. I said, fire safe in the closet. If it's still there. It was. Small miracles. While Officer Martinez made calls, I texted my landlord. Mr. Chin was old school, ran a tight ship. Immigrants from Taiwan. Built his real estate empire one property at a time. He liked me because I fixed things without calling him. Jake, how are you? He answered on the first ring. I explained the situation. The silence on his end stretched so long, I thought we'd disconnected. Finally, she had party last night. Neighbors complained. Third noise violation. I was going to call you Monday. Third strike. Lease violation. Eviction territory. Mr. Chun, I need to move my belongings out. Today, can you document the apartment's condition when I'm done? I come now, he said. Bring camera. You good tenant, Jake. Her problematic. By the time Sophia and her crew returned, I had reinforcements. Officer Martinez, Mr. Chun with his camera, and 2 guys from a moving company. I was bubble wrapping my dad's engine model. Found it in Sophia's closet, hidden behind her shoes like buried treasure. The look on her face when she walked in was worth framing. The confident stride faltered. The designer sunglasses came off. Behind her, the squadron, Ember, Chloe, Bree. Thomas trailing behind them looking like a hostage. What's happening? Sophia's voice cracked. Moving my belongings to secure location. I said, not looking up from the bubble wrap. Officer Martinez has some questions about the Facebook Marketplace listings. Those were She was scrambling. I was going to surprise you. Decluttering. Declutter my car? I held up my phone with the listing. The one registered in my name only? Officer Martinez stepped forward. Ma'am, we need to discuss these listings. Mr. Chung was taking photos of the smoke damage, the wine stains on his carpet, the hole in the wall that definitely wasn't there before. You're seriously doing this? Sophia's voice pitched higher. You're destroying 3 years over one dinner? I finally looked at her. Really looked at her. Mascara slightly smudged, designer outfit wrinkled, that perfectly curated image starting to crack. No, I said, wrapping the last of the model. You destroyed it when you told me to pay and leave. I just took you seriously. This is insane. Ember stepped forward. Jake, you're being dramatic. Mr. Chin turned to them. Which one of you is on lease? We. Sophia is, Chloe stammered. Only Sophia and Jake on lease, Mr. Chin said. Rest of you trespassing. Please leave. The movers were efficient. Box after box of my life disappeared into their truck. My tools recovered from Sophia's car trunk after Officer Martinez had a word. My guitar, my clothes, my books. 3 years compressed into a 2-hour moving job. Thomas helped carry boxes. Didn't say anything, just helped. When Bree snapped at him to stop, he kept walking. Small rebellions. You'll regret this, Sophia said as I carried the last box out. You'll come crawling back. I stopped at the doorway. Turned back one last time. The apartment looked strange without my things. Bigger, emptier, like a stage after the play ends. There's a Buddhist saying, I said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You're the one who gets burned. Since when you quote Buddhism? She was crying now, angry tears. Since I realized I've been holding that coal for 3 years. I handed my keys to Mr. Chun, nodded to Officer Martinez, walked past Thomas, who gave me the slightest fist bump. The moving truck was already pulling away. My truck sat in the parking lot, loaded with the last of my essentials. The afternoon sun was bright, almost harsh. Summer in Denver, when the mountains looked painted against the sky. I sat in my truck for a moment. Through the apartment window, I could see them arguing, arms waving, fingers pointing. The coalition was turning on itself. My phone buzzed. Thomas. Bree just blamed Sophia for everything. This is better than Netflix. Another text. Oh, snap. Chloe just called Ember a parasite. One more. Sophia threw wine at the wall. Mr. Chun is taking more pictures. I put the phone away. Started the engine. The truth about revenge is that the best kind is the one you don't have to orchestrate. Sometimes you just have to step back and let people reveal themselves. The truck pulled out smooth, that rebuilt transmission purring like it should. In the rear-view mirror, the apartment complex got smaller and smaller until it was just another building in a city full of them. Another life I used to live. The next 2 weeks unfolded like a slow-motion demolition. You know those videos where they blow up old casinos in Vegas? One charge goes off, then another, and suddenly the whole thing just crumbles. That was Sophia's world, except the charges were consequences she'd lit herself. Mr. Chin moved fast. 3-day notice to cure or quit. Legal speak for fix your mess or get out. Sophia tried to fight it. Even got her company's legal team involved. Turns out, Senior VP of Communications doesn't mean much when you violated your lease agreement 6 ways from Sunday. The lawyer took one look at Mr. Chen's documentation, photos, complaints, police reports, and told her to start packing. Thomas became my unexpected correspondent. We'd text like war reporters from the front lines. His first message came Tuesday afternoon. Bree just found out I told you about their plan. She called me a traitor. I called her single. We're done. Then Wednesday. Update. She's demanding I pay her back for every dinner she bought me. I sent her an invoice for 3 years of emotional labor. My therapist would be proud. The man had found his spine, and honestly, it looked good on him. Thursday brought news about Ember. Thomas had the inside scoop. She got fired. Posted screenshots of private company Slack messages on Instagram, calling her boss aesthetically challenged and her co-workers creativity vampires. HR was not amused. Turns out, when you build your whole personality around being better than everyone else, people celebrate when you fall. Her Instagram went from 50K followers to 30K in 3 days. The internet loves a good takedown. Chloe's situation was almost sad. Almost. Her ex-boyfriend, reached out to me directly, found me on LinkedIn of all places. His message was short. Heard about what went down. She tried the same financial manipulation with me. Thanks for showing me I wasn't crazy. Drink sometime. I declined the drinks, but appreciated the solidarity. There's something validating about finding out you weren't the only one seeing the red flags. Friday afternoon, Sophia tried one last play. Not directly. She was too proud for that. Instead, she sent her mom. Mrs. Martinez showed up at Mark's garage where I'd been staying. Sweet lady, always liked her. She brought tamales, which felt like emotional warfare. Jake, Mijo, she said, and I could see where Sophia got her negotiation skills. This is all a misunderstanding. Sophia is just stressed with work. I showed her the screenshots of the Facebook Marketplace listings. Her face went through stages. Confusion, recognition, disappointment. She left with her tamales. Never said another word about reconciliation. Saturday, exactly 2 weeks after the restaurant incident, Sophia sent her final message. Not a text, an email. Subject line, closure. She wrote about memories. About the time I taught her how to change a tire, how patient I was, how she thought then that I'd make a good father someday. I forgot that feeling, she wrote. Or maybe I just convinced myself it didn't matter. The email went on. 3 paragraphs of what-ifs and should-haves. At the bottom, almost like an afterthought, I'm moving back with my parents. The apartment was too expensive anyway. I read it twice, then deleted it. Some conversations don't need responses. They need endings. Thomas, and I met for beers the following week. Not planned. We just ended up at the same sports bar, watching the Broncos lose to the Chiefs. Again, he looked different, relaxed, like someone had untied a knot in his shoulders. You know what's funny? He said, 3 beers in. I kept thinking something was wrong with me, like I wasn't successful enough, ambitious enough, whatever enough. Turns out, I was just surrounded by people who made inadequacy their brand. Toxic people need supply. I said, remembering something my therapist had told me years ago. They create drama because peace makes them irrelevant. Speaking of irrelevant, Thomas pulled up his phone. Check Bree's LinkedIn. She rebranded herself as a life strategy coach. Her bio read, helping women recognize their worth and leave toxic situations. The irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. Ember's teaching yoga now, he added. Calls herself a mindfulness warrior. And Chloe moved to Austin. Says Denver was energetically misaligned with her chakras. We laughed, not mean-spirited, just aware. These people who'd made us feel small were just playing dress-up with personalities, trying on new identities like clothes at Target. But here's the thing about endings, they're also beginnings. I've been saving up to restore another classic car, had my eye on a '67 Mustang. But sitting in that bar, watching bad football with Thomas, I realized something. That money could do something better. I'm thinking about starting my own shop. I told him. Custom restoration. Small operation. Just me and maybe one other guy to start. Thomas raised his beer. You hiring IT support? You offering? My company's remote. I could use a place to work that isn't my apartment. Plus, I know nothing about cars. It'd be educational. And just like that, I had an office manager who'd work for free Wi-Fi and occasional beer. The shop opened 3 months later. Nothing fancy. A converted warehouse space in Commerce City, where rent was still reasonable. I sold the Barracuda to fund it. That hurt, not gonna lie. 5 years of work, every weekend under that hood. But sometimes you have to let go of what you were building to build something better. The check cleared for $32,000, 4 times what Sophia had tried to sell it for. The buyer was a collector from Colorado Springs, promised to finish the restoration. I threw in my notes, every modification I'd made, every part number. It wasn't abandoning the project. It was passing it on. Opening day was a Tuesday. Nothing special planned. Just flipped the sign to open and waited. First customer came in around noon. Older gentleman with a '72 Chevelle that needed transmission work. By Friday, I had 3 jobs lined up. Thomas set up a desk in the corner, brought his gaming laptop and a coffee maker that probably cost more than my rent. He'd handle the books, the website, social media, all the stuff that made my brain hurt. In exchange, he got a place to exist without judgment. Fair trade. 6 months after that dinner, I got one last update about Sophia. Not from her, from LinkedIn of all places. She'd posted about rising from adversity and finding strength in struggle. Senior VP position at a startup that probably wouldn't last a year. The comments were all fire emojis and Yas Queen energy. Empty calories for an empty life. I didn't react to the post. Didn't even linger on it. Just scrolled past like it was an ad for something I'd never buy. Thomas noticed me looking at my phone. Sophia, ancient history. He raised his coffee mug. To ancient history. May it stay buried. And to new beginnings, I added, clinking my mug against his. Outside, Commerce City sprawled under a perfect Colorado sky. Mountains in the distance, promise in the air. A '68 Camaro was waiting in Bay 2, needing a complete rebuild. The owner wanted it done right, not fast. My kind of job. You know what happiness actually is? It's not getting revenge. It's not watching people who hurt you suffer. It's not even success, really. Happiness is waking up and realizing the weight you've been carrying wasn't yours to begin with. It's choosing your own load on your own terms. Sophia was right about one thing. I did throw away 3 years over one dinner. But she was wrong about it being a loss. Sometimes the best trades are the ones where you give up something that looks valuable for something that actually is. My dad used to say, "Son, the measure of a man isn't what he accumulates. It's what he's willing to walk away from." Took me 30 years and a $1,500 dinner to understand what he meant. The shop's doing well now. Not getting rich, but getting by, getting better. Thomas is still here. Built us a customer database that actually works. We added a second bay. Hired a kid fresh out of tech school who reminds me of myself 10 years ago. Hungry to learn, hands that want to build. Sometimes, late afternoon when the light hits just right, I'll stand outside and look at what we built. A simple shop with a hand-painted sign. Tools that get used. Honest work for honest pay. It's not Instagram-worthy. It won't impress anyone at a trendy restaurant. But it's real and it's mine. That's the thing about starting over. It's not really starting from zero. You bring the lessons, leave the luggage. You keep the skills, drop the drama. You remember what matters, forget what doesn't. The woman who told me to pay and leave gave me the best advice of my life. She just didn't know it. Payment isn't always money. Sometimes it's walking away from what you thought you wanted to find what you actually need. I paid. I left. Best $68 I ever spent.